I walked into my childhood home expecting a family dinner. Instead, I found my wife in my brother's bed. Not a stranger, not some random affair. My brother, the man I protected my entire life, the best man at my wedding, the godfather to my kids. They'd been sleeping together for 18 months. 18 months of family dinners where they smiled at me. 18 months of holidays where I played the fool. My parents begged me to forgive them, to keep the family together. So I smiled. I forgave. And then I systematically dismantled every single thing my brother ever cared about. This is a story of how family betrayal turned me into someone I never thought I'd become, and why I do it all over again. Chapter 1. The discovery that shattered everything. My name is Marcus Chen, and before everything went to hell, I was living what most people would call the American dream. I'm 34 years old, a senior project manager at a tech firm in Austin, Texas, pulling in six figures, driving a Tesla, living in a house with a pool in Westlake Hills. I had a wife I'd been with since college, Sarah, blonde, beautiful, the kind of woman who turned heads at company events. 2 kids, Emma and Jack, 7 and 5. A younger brother, Tyler, who I'd basically raised after our dad had his first heart attack when I was 16. Yeah, I was that guy, the one who had it all figured out. Except I didn't know shit. The worst moment of my entire life happened on a Tuesday in March. Funny how you remember these details, right? It was a Tuesday, 68 degrees, sunny, one of those perfect Texas days where the sky is so blue it almost hurts to look at. I was supposed to be in San Francisco for a 3-day conference, some boring corporate retreat about synergy and team dynamics. But my morning flight got canceled, mechanical issues, and instead of waiting around San Francisco airport for 6 hours, I said screw it and drove straight from the airport back home. I figured I'd surprise Sarah, maybe take her to lunch, actually spend some time with my wife for once instead of being the absent husband she'd been complaining about. God, the irony makes me want to laugh and puke at the same time. She wasn't at our house. Her car was gone, and when I called her cell, it went straight to voicemail. I tried again. Nothing. So I called my mom because Sarah had mentioned something about helping with renovations of my parents' place. They were redoing the kitchen, and Sarah had volunteered to help pick out tile or some domestic crap like that. "Oh, Marcus, honey." "Yes, she's here," my mom said, and I could hear something weird in her voice. Something tight. "But maybe call before you come over? We're in the middle of—" I hung up. That tone. I knew that tone. It was the same voice she used when I was a kid, and she was hiding something from me, trying to protect me from bad news. Except I was 34 years old, not 8, and that protective instinct just made my stomach drop. I drove to my parents' house in Tarrytown, the same house I grew up in, the one with the tire swing still hanging from the oak tree in the backyard. I used my key. I'd never given it back, even after moving out over a decade ago. The house was quiet. Too quiet. My parents' cars were both gone. Just Sarah's white Honda Pilot in the driveway, and Tyler's beat-up Jeep Cherokee that he'd been driving since high school. "Sarah?" I called out. Nothing. I walked to the living room, past the kitchen where contractors had left their tools scattered around, and headed upstairs. That's when I heard it. Sounds. Rhythmic, unmistakable sounds coming from Tyler's old bedroom at the end of the hall. You know what the really messed up part is? My brain tried to rationalize it. Maybe she's watching TV. Maybe she's on the phone. Maybe literally anything else except what I knew in my gut was happening. I stood in that hallway for what felt like an eternity, but was probably 30 seconds, my heart hammering so hard I thought I might pass out, my hand frozen on the doorknob of my little brother's bedroom door. When I finally opened it, they didn't even stop right away. That's what I can't get out of my head. They were so comfortable, so deep in their betrayal, that it took them a solid 3 seconds to even register I was there. Sarah was on top of him, my brother, my baby brother who I taught to ride a bike and help with homework and given money to when he was broke. They were in his childhood bed, the same one with the Dallas Cowboys comforter he'd had since he was 12. The confrontation that followed was somehow worse than the actual discovery. Sarah started crying immediately, scrambling for her clothes, saying, "Oh my God, Marcus, oh my God," like she'd been caught shoplifting instead of destroying our entire life. She kept saying it just happened, like they'd accidentally tripped and fallen onto each other naked for what I'd later find out was 18 months. But Tyler? My brother didn't cry. He didn't apologize. He stood there, pulling on his jeans with this defiant look on his face, and said, "I've been in love with her since your wedding day, man. Since the first time I met her. I swear to God, I saw red. Actual, literal red clouding my vision. You've been—" I couldn't even finish the sentence. "Tyler, what the hell are you? You're never home," he cut me off, his voice rising. "You're always working, always traveling, always putting your career first." She was lonely, Marcus. She needed someone who actually gave a damn, and you were too busy climbing the corporate ladder to notice. He was justifying it, standing there in his childhood bedroom, where we'd played video games and talked about girls and shared secrets, and he was trying to make me the villain. My own blood was telling me I deserved this. I wanted to kill him. I'm not exaggerating for dramatic effect. I genuinely considered it. I looked at his face, the same face I'd seen every day for 28 years, and I want to cave in with my fists until he stopped looking like someone I used to love. The only thing that stopped me was thinking about Emma and Jack, how they'd already lost enough, and having their dad in prison for murder would really complete their childhood trauma collection. So I left. I walked out of that room, down those stairs, past family photos on the wall showing us as kids with our arms around each other, and I got in my car. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely get the key in the ignition. I called my dad from the parking lot of 7-Eleven 2 miles away, sitting there watching some kid pump gas while my entire world was imploding. "Dad, I need you to know what Tyler did, what Sarah did. I just caught them." "Marcus." He cut me off, and his voice was heavy. "Tired. Your mother and I, we had our suspicions." The words didn't register at first. Then they did, and somehow, impossibly, things got even worse. They knew. My parents knew, or at least suspected, for months, and they'd said nothing. They watched me show up to family dinners, watched me smile and laugh and play with my kids while my wife and brother were screwing behind my back, and nobody thought to give me a heads up. "We didn't want to interfere in your marriage," my dad continued. "We thought maybe we were wrong, or maybe it would blow over. Blow over?" I was yelling now, not caring that people in the parking lot were staring. "Dad, he was sleeping with my wife." "I know, son, I know. But we didn't have proof, and we didn't want to cause problems if we were mistaken." When I told him I was divorcing Sarah and never speaking to Tyler again, my mom got on the phone. She was crying, not for me, not because her son's life was destroyed, but because I was tearing the family apart. Those were her exact words. I was tearing the family apart. Not Tyler, not Sarah, me, for having the audacity to be upset about being betrayed by everyone I trusted. That's when I realized the discovery wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was understanding that the betrayal wasn't just two people. It was systemic. It was everyone who stayed silent at every family barbecue, every Christmas dinner, every birthday party for the last year and a half. They'd all chosen to protect themselves from awkwardness rather than protect me from humiliation. And that's when something inside me broke. Or maybe it didn't break. Maybe it just transformed into something harder, colder, more calculating. Because sitting in that 7-Eleven parking lot, watching the Texas sun set over the hill country, I made a decision. I wasn't going to yell anymore. I wasn't going to make scenes. I was going to smile and nod and play whatever role they needed me to play. And then I was going to destroy them all. Chapter 2. The Aftermath. How Betrayal Burns Everything Down. The first 48 hours after discovering your wife in bed with your brother is basically a blur of rage, nausea, and disbelief on an endless loop. I didn't sleep. Couldn't eat. I'd start to do something normal. Pour coffee, answer an email, tie my shoes, and then suddenly I'd be on the floor hyperventilating, seeing their bodies tangled together every time I closed my eyes. I checked into a Hampton Inn off I-35 because I couldn't go home. Our home, the one I bought with my signing bonus 5 years ago, the one where Sarah had painted the nursery yellow for Emma, where we hosted Super Bowl parties and Christmas mornings. Every room in that house was contaminated now. Every memory was a lie. On day 3, Sarah showed up at the hotel. I have no idea how she found me. Probably called every hotel in Austin until someone confirmed a Marcus Chen was registered. She was standing in the hallway when I came back from a vending machine run at 2 in the morning, still wearing the same clothes from that Tuesday, mascara streaked down her face. "Marcus, please. We need to talk." The audacity of that statement nearly knocked me over. We needed to talk. Like we were discussing whose turn it was to take out the trash, not the complete destruction of our marriage. "There's nothing to talk about," I said, trying to get my key card to work with shaking hands. "It was a mistake." She was crying, full-on sobbing in that hotel corridor. "A huge, terrible mistake. But I choose you, Marcus. I choose our family. I choose us." I stopped, turned around, looked at her, really looked at her, and tried to find the girl I'd fallen in love with at UT Austin, the one who used to steal my hoodies and make pancakes on Sunday mornings. She wasn't there anymore. Or maybe she'd never been real in the first place. "You choose me?" I laughed, and it sounded unhinged even to my own ears. "How many times, Sarah?" "What?" "How many times did you sleep with my brother?" She looked down at the industrial carpet. "Marcus, please don't." "How?" "Many times." Don't. I can't remember exactly. It wasn't about. Ballpark it for me." My voice was cold, flat. I didn't recognize it. Maybe 40? 50. She was whispering now. But it wasn't about the sex. It was emotional. We connected on a... Where? I cut her off. "Where did you do it?" "Marcus." "Where's Sarah?" She flinched, started listing them like she was reading off a grocery list. "Our bed, Tyler's apartment, my parents' pool house when they were out of town, the guest room at her sister's place during Thanksgiving, my car once when she borrowed it to go to Target. That last one made me physically gag. I'd driven Emma to school in that car the next day. We can go to counseling," Sarah continued, reaching for my arm. I jerked away like she was radioactive. "We can fix this. For the kids, Marcus. Think about Emma and Jack. They need both their parents." Using my kids as emotional leverage. That's when I knew she wasn't sorry for what she'd done. She was sorry she got caught. She didn't want me back. She wanted to avoid the social embarrassment and financial consequences of a divorce. "Get a lawyer," I said, opening my hotel room door. "A good one. You're going to need it." I slammed the door in her face and immediately called the best divorce attorney in Austin, Catherine Rodriguez, a shark in Louboutins who had a reputation for absolutely destroying cheating spouses in court. While I was building my legal case, Tyler was busy building his PR campaign. Within a week, my entire extended family had heard his version of events, and let me tell you, it was a masterpiece of manipulation. According to him, Sarah had seduced him. She pursued him relentlessly while he tried to resist because he respected his big brother too much. He felt terrible about the whole thing, but he just couldn't help his feelings. They were in love, real love, the kind that transcends right and wrong. My mom bought every word. She started calling me daily, saying things like, "Tyler made a mistake, but he's still your brother, and Sarah says she wants to make it work. You should at least try for the kids." When I refused come to Sunday dinner, she actually got mad at me, for not wanting to break bread with the two people who betrayed me. "You're being stubborn, Marcus," she said during one particularly painful phone call. "This is what's wrong with your generation. You give up too easily instead of fighting for your marriage." Fighting for my marriage? I was pacing my hotel room, pulling at my hair. "Mom, she was sleeping with Tyler for a year and a half. In your house. And you knew." "We suspected. We didn't know for sure. And even if we did, it's not our place to..." I hung up on her. First time I'd ever done that in my life. The family group chat. Yeah, we had one of those because apparently we were a close, loving family, was blowing up with opinions. My Aunt Linda said I was overreacting. My cousin Josh said marriages go through rough patches and I should man up and forgive. Uncle Pete sent a long message about how divorce is a sin, and I was thinking selfishly instead of about my children's souls. Only my younger cousin Melissa had my back, sending me a private text that said, "What they did is unforgivable. I'm here if you need anything." It was the only message that didn't make me want to throw my phone against the wall. Meanwhile, everyone could see I was falling apart. I lost 23 pounds in 2 weeks. Started drinking whiskey for breakfast. Miss important meetings at work because I'd zone out mid-sentence. Seeing them together, hearing Tyler's voice saying he'd loved her since our wedding day. My boss, David, pulled me aside and suggested I take FMLA leave. Go get your head right, man. This job will still be here. What nobody knew, what they couldn't see through my grief, was that every single moment of that breakdown was being documented. While I was crying in my hotel room, I was also screenshotting every text message between Sarah and Tyler that I'd pulled from our shared cloud storage. While I was too depressed to respond to my family, I was printing bank statements showing charges to the Four Seasons, the Driscoll, the South Congress Hotel, all the places they'd used my credit cards to fund their affair. I hired a private investigator, former cop named Hank Morrison, who specialized in infidelity cases. Within 3 days, he confirmed everything and found more. Receipts for jewelry I'd never seen Sarah wear. Lingerie purchases from Victoria's Secret that never made it into our bedroom. Venmo payments from my account to Tyler with notes like loan and gas money that were actually funding his dates with my wife. I sat in that hotel room surrounded by evidence. My laptop open to Catherine's detailed divorce strategy, a bottle of Maker's Mark next to me for appearances, and I smiled for the first time since that Tuesday. They thought I was broken. They thought I was the emotional, irrational one who couldn't handle reality. They thought I'd eventually cave, forgive, move on like a good little victim should. They had no idea I wasn't having a breakdown. I was loading the gun, and I had very good aim. Chapter 3. The perfect revenge starts with patience. Revenge is a dish best served cold. That's what they say, right? But here's what nobody tells you. The coldest revenge requires you to act warm, friendly, forgiving. You have to become the best damn actor in the room, while everyone else thinks you're just another broken man trying to pick up the pieces. 3 weeks after I found them together, I called Sarah. Her voice was cautious, hopeful. "James, I've been thinking," I said, making my voice crack just enough to sound vulnerable. "Maybe we should try counseling. For Emma and Jake. They deserve parents who at least tried." The relief in her voice was almost pathetic. "Oh my God, James, yes. Yes, absolutely. I've already found a therapist in West Hartford, Dr. Patterson. She specializes in..." "That's fine. Whatever you think." I paused, went for the kill. "I can't promise I'll get over this, but I can promise I'll try. For our kids." She was crying again, thanking me, telling me she loved me, that she'd make this right. I hung up and immediately texted Catherine Rodriguez. She took the bait. File everything tomorrow. Because here's the thing about Connecticut. It's not a no-fault divorce state. Adultery matters. And Sarah had just agreed to counseling, which meant she was admitting the marriage could be saved, which meant she looked even worse when my attorney presented documented proof of an 18-month affair during our very first court appearance. Catherine's petition was 40 pages of airtight legal devastation. Every hotel receipt, every text message, every Venmo transaction. Sarah thought we were healing. I was building her coffin. 2 days later, I showed up to Sunday dinner at my parents' place. First time since that Tuesday. Mom nearly dropped the pot roast when she saw me walk in. Mike was already there, sitting on the couch watching the Patriots game like he hadn't destroyed my entire life. Sarah was in the kitchen helping Mom with the salad. "James!" Mom rushed over, hugging me like I was returning from war. "Oh, honey, I'm so glad you came. This is good. This is healing." I smiled, nodded, played the part of the wounded son, trying to be the bigger man. I even walked into the living room and stuck my hand out to Mike. He looked at it like it might be a trap. "Smart boy. Jamie," he said carefully, shaking it. "I'm glad you're..." "For the kids," I said simply. "Emma asked why Uncle Mike doesn't come around anymore. I won't have them growing up thinking family means nothing." The look of relief on his face was beautiful. He actually thought I was weak enough to forgive him just like that. Dad clapped me on the shoulder, talking about how real men work through problems, and families forever. I nodded along, helped set the table, made small talk about the Celtics, and watched Sarah and Mike exchange these little glances when they thought I wasn't looking. They still wanted each other. Good. That would make everything so much sweeter. I was playing the long game, and the first move was making everyone think I'd already lost. While I was performing family reconciliation theater, Hank Morrison was digging into Mike's life, and what he found was better than Christmas morning. See, Mike worked for Dad's commercial property management company, Miller and Associates, the business Dad built from nothing over 30 years. Mike was the operations manager, handled vendor contracts, maintenance schedules, that kind of thing. Boring stuff. Safe stuff. Except Mike had been skimming for the past 3 years. Hank found fake vendor accounts, Precision HVAC Services, Elite Landscaping Solutions, Premier Electrical, all registered to P.O. boxes, and shell LLCs that trace back to Mike's girlfriend from college, Jessica Chen, who apparently owed him a favor. Mike would create bogus invoices for services never rendered. Dad would approve them because he trusted his son, and Mike would pocket the payments. $35,000 here, $20,000 there. Over 3 years, he'd stolen nearly $400,000 from our family business. I sat in Hank's office staring at the evidence spread across his desk, bank statements, forged invoices, email trails, and I laughed. Actually laughed out loud. Hank looked at me like I'd finally snapped. "You okay, Mr. Miller?" "He's been stealing from Dad while screwing my wife." I shook my head. "My brother, the criminal genius. What do you want to do with this information?" I gathered up the files, slid them into my briefcase. "Nothing. Not yet. Let him feel safe a little longer. Because timing is everything in revenge. If I dropped the embezzlement bomb too early, Mike would have time to prepare, maybe even pin it on someone else. But if I waited until the perfect moment, say, a major family holiday when everyone was gathered, when he felt most comfortable, the fallout would be nuclear. Meanwhile, I became the model father and son. Started seeing a therapist twice a week. Dr. Karen Hoffman, a kind woman in her 50s who specialized in trauma and betrayal. I was honest with her about everything, including my revenge plans. She didn't try to talk me out of it, just asked me to consider the long-term consequences. I appreciated that. I took Emma and Jake on special trips. Weekend hiking in the White Mountains, whale watching in Cape Cod, indoor skydiving in Manchester. I documented everything with photos and posted them on Facebook with captions like, "Nothing heals like time with my babies," and "Finding joy in the simple moments." Sarah's friends ate it up. Even her own mother commented about what a wonderful father I was. Sarah, meanwhile, was flaking. Showed up late to custody, exchanges smelling like wine. Forgot Jake's soccer game twice. Missed Emma's parent-teacher conference because she was dealing with a lot. I documented every failure, every missed call, every broken promise. My attorney was building a custody case that would make Sarah look like an unfit mother, which, to be fair, she was becoming. I sent Mom flowers for no reason. Just thinking of you with a card. Helped my sister Rachel with her mortgage payment when her husband lost his job. Volunteered for the church pancake breakfast Dad organized every month. I became the son they'd always wanted. Responsible, present, forgiving. Mike was charming, sure, but I was reliable, and in the long run, parents always bet on reliable. At Christmas, I even bought Mike a gift. A nice one, leather portfolio with his initials monogrammed on it. He opened it at Mom's house, surrounded by family, and actually got choked up. "Jamie, man, this means a lot." "You're my brother," I said, pulling him into a hug while every relative watched approvingly. Nothing changes that. I could feel the evidence of his embezzlement in my briefcase upstairs in Mom's guest room. For 100,000 reasons why he should have kept his hands off my wife and out of Dad's bank accounts. Sarah cornered me in the kitchen while Mike was playing with the kids. "You're really doing it," she whispered. "You're really forgiving us." "I'm trying." I looked her right in the eyes. Some betrayals cut so deep that forgiveness takes years. But I'm willing to try. For Emma and Jake. She kissed my cheek. Actually kissed me. like we were a couple again. I didn't pull away, just smiled and thought about the court date Catherine had scheduled for January 15th, where Sarah would be served with divorce papers so comprehensive she'd need a team of attorneys to even understand them. Every smile was a weapon. Every kind gesture was ammunition. Every moment they thought I was healing, I was actually hunting. They'd mistaken my patience for weakness, my silence for acceptance. They thought the game was over. They had no idea it was just beginning. And I'd already won 3 moves ago. Chapter 4. Watching their lives implode, and I held the matches. January 15th. The day everything I'd built came crashing down on Sarah's head like a ton of bricks. She got served with divorce papers at her sister's house in Weathersfield. 43 pages of legal destruction hand-delivered by a process server at 8 in the morning. She called me 17 times that day. I didn't answer once. The first court date was 3 weeks later. Sarah showed up with some bargain attorneys she'd found on Yelp. Guy named Dennis Walsh, who looked like he'd gotten his law degree from a cereal box. Catherine Rodriguez walked in wearing a blood-red suit and carrying a briefcase that probably cost more than Dennis's car. I almost felt bad for Sarah. Almost. The judge was Thomas Brennan, 62 years old, Catholic, married 40 years, the kind of old-school Connecticut family man who took wedding vows seriously. When Catherine started presenting evidence, the hotel receipts, the text messages, the Venmo payments with notes like, "Thanks for last night face blowing a kiss. I watched his face harden like concrete." Mrs. Miller, Judge Brennan said, looking at Sarah over his reading glasses, "You use marital funds to conduct an extramarital affair with your husband's brother?" Sarah's attorney tried to object, but she cut him off. "It wasn't like that, Your Honor. We were going through a rough patch, and I made a terrible mistake." "For 18 months? Catherine interjected smoothly. "That's not a mistake, Your Honor. That's a calculated pattern of deception and financial abuse." The judge wasn't having any of Sarah's excuses. By the time we left that courtroom, Sarah had been granted minimal assets, basically whatever she brought into the marriage, which wasn't much since we got married right out of college when neither of us had anything. The house was mine. The cars were mine. The investment accounts I'd built were mine. She got supervised visitation with Emma and Jake until she could demonstrate stability. Judge's words, not mine. But the real kicker came 2 months later, when the school board got wind of everything. See, Sarah taught 3rd grade at Millbrook Elementary, the same school Emma attended. Court documents are public record in Connecticut, and some concerned parent did their research and found out their kid's teacher had been having an affair with her husband's brother, using family money to fund hotel trysts. The PDA went ballistic. Parents started a petition. Sarah's principal, Mrs. Donnelly, this sweet old lady who'd been at that school for 30 years, called her into the office and suggested she resign quietly rather than face a formal termination. Sarah refused at first, threatened to lawyer up, made a whole scene about discrimination and privacy. The school board voted unanimously to terminate her contract. She lost her job, her reputation, and any chance of teaching in Connecticut again. Last I heard, she was working at the Target on the Berlin Turnpike, scanning groceries and avoiding eye contact with parents she used to teach. And Mike promised he'd take care of her, told her they'd get through this together, that their love was stronger than judgment. That fairy tale lasted exactly 3 months before reality set in, and Sarah realized she'd traded a 6-figure household for a guy who still rented an apartment above a pizza shop on Main Street. But I wasn't done with Mike. Not even close. Thanksgiving, November 23rd. The entire Miller family gathered at Mom and Dad's place. Aunts, uncles, cousins, the whole clan. Turkey in the oven. Football on TV. Dad carving the bird while everyone gathered around the dining room table. It was exactly the scene Norman Rockwell would have painted if Norman Rockwell was into psychological warfare. Mike was there, of course. He'd been coming to family dinners regularly, probably because Sarah had dumped him the week before and he needed Mom's comfort food. He looked rough, lost weight, dark circles under his eyes, wearing the same Red Sox hoodie he'd worn for 3 days straight. I waited until everyone was seated. 23 people around that extended table, 3 generations of Millers, all holding hands for Dad's traditional pre-meal prayer. The moment Dad said, "Amen," I stood up. "Before we eat," I said, my voice calm and clear, "there's something Dad needs to see." I pulled a manila folder from my bag and handed it to Dad. Mom looked confused. Mike went pale, like actual ghost white pale. He knew. Somehow he knew. "James, honey, what is this?" Mom asked, "Can it wait until after—" "Open it, Dad." Dad opened the folder. His face went through about 5 different emotions in 10 seconds. Confusion, disbelief, anger, disgust, devastation. He pulled out the bank statements, the fake invoices, the shell company registrations. His hands were shaking. "Robert." Mom leaned over. "What is it?" "Mike's been stealing from the company." Dad's voice was barely a whisper. "For 3 years. Almost $400,000. The table went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop on the hardwood floor. "That's not—" "I didn't," Mike stammered, standing up so fast his chair fell over. "Jamie, what the hell is this? This is fake. This is—" "Precision HVAC Services," I said calmly, reading from my own copy. "Elite Landscaping Solutions. Premier Electrical. All registered to Jessica Chen's address in New Haven. Your ex-girlfriend Jessica, right? The one you said you hadn't talked to in years." Dad was staring at Mike like he'd never seen him before. "You stole from me? From your own family. I was going to pay it back." Mike's voice was rising, panicked. "I had some debts, some investments that went bad. I just needed time to—" "You stole from me while you were sleeping with your brother's wife." Dad stood up, and I'd never seen him look like that. Face red, veins popping in his neck. "In my house, under my roof. You betrayed everyone." Uncle Pete tried to calm everyone down. Aunt Linda started crying. My cousin Melissa just sat there with her mouth open. Mom kept saying there must be some mistake, over and over like a broken record. There was no mistake. Within a week, Mike was fired from Miller and Associates. Dad filed a police report. Mike was arrested, spent a night in jail, posted bail with money he borrowed from Mom, which Dad lost his mind about when he found out. Dad changed his will, cutting Mike out entirely. 30 years of building a family legacy, and Mike would get exactly $0 of it. The criminal case took 8 months. Mike pled guilty to embezzlement and fraud, got 18 months in Cheshire Correctional. Could have been worse. His attorney argued he was having a mental health crisis, family trauma, all the psychological BS that got him a lighter sentence. But 18 months in Connecticut State Prison isn't exactly a vacation. I heard through the grapevine that he got the crap kicked out of him in his second week. Something about disrespecting someone's commissary. I didn't lose sleep over it. And here's the beautiful part. The part that makes all of this feel like poetry. Sarah and Mike's relationship imploded faster than the Hindenburg. Turns out, Sarah didn't actually love Mike. She loved the affair, the sneaking around, the forbidden romance, the excitement of breaking rules. Once their relationship was public and real, once she had to actually deal with Mike's problems and insecurities without the thrill of secrecy, she realized she'd blown up her entire life for a guy who was broke, unemployed, and facing felony charges. They lasted 6 months as an official couple. 6 months of Mike making promises he couldn't keep. Sarah realizing she traded down in every possible way, and both of them blaming each other for their situation. The breakup was spectacular, according to my sister Rachel, who heard it from Mike's friend Josh. Screaming match in the parking lot of the Stop and Shop. Sarah threw his stuff out of her apartment window. Mike called her every name in the book. 3 weeks after they split, Sarah showed up at my door. I was living in the house, our house, with Emma and Jake, who were adjusting better than I'd expected. School counseling was helping. I'd started dating again. Nothing serious. Just coffee here and there with physical therapist named Amy, who didn't come with 18 months of baggage. Sarah stood on my porch at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday, makeup running, looking like she'd aged 10 years in one. "James, I made a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. Can we talk? Can we please just—" I laughed. Actually laughed in her face. "You're kidding, right? I still love you. I never stopped loving you." Mike was just what? Sarah? Just convenient? Just exciting? Just my brother? Please. She was crying, reaching for me. I'll do anything. I'll prove it to you. I'll spend the rest of my life making this right. I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no sadness, no residual love. Just emptiness where she used to live in my heart. You should go, I said. Emma and Jake are inside doing homework. They don't need to see you like this. Can I at least see them? Your supervised visitation is Sunday, 1 to 4 p.m. You know the schedule. I closed the door, locked it, walked back to the kitchen where my kids were arguing about long division, and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. Mike tried to apologize to Dad from prison, wrote a 10-page letter about redemption and forgiveness and taking responsibility. Dad read the first paragraph, tore it up, and threw it in the fireplace. Mom tried to play peacemaker for a while, but even she eventually gave up when Mike kept making excuses instead of actually apologizing. Both of them, Sarah and Mike, lost everything. Their relationship, their reputations, their family, their futures. And I didn't have to throw a single punch or make a single threat. I just had to be patient, document everything, and let the consequences of their own actions destroy them. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting your hands dirty. It's just standing back and watching people drown in the mess they made themselves.